Without further ado, we wouldn't have the classic hockey mask and the creeps without Ari Lehman and Sean Cunningham. Hey, have a seat, guys. How's Chicago?
Chicago.
I love Chicago.
Chicago's great. It's vital.
Yeah.
Go Cubs.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Cubs fans.
Go Bears.
There you go. Nice. So let's go back. Let's go back to Camp Crystal Lake. How did the concept begin of Friday the 13th? My question.
Sean?
Well, it's a story I've told several times, but before Friday the 13th, I was working on a movie that had to do with kids playing soccer, and it was a nice little movie, but trying to figure out what the poster would be and what we could do that would make it seem more vital or interesting or whatever. And one of the things that we did at the time, Steve Miner and I started making lists of titles, just arbitrary lists of titles. And this was a story about underdog kids playing soccer. We make this list, and while we're making this list, this thought comes to me, it's like, Friday the 13th. Shit, if I had a movie called Friday the 13th, I could sell that. But meanwhile, I've got to sell this soccer movie. And Ari, as it turns out, was in that soccer movie.
As Roger. Yes.
And Ari did not have a beard or a mustache or the long hair.
He's changed?
What do you mean?
He played...
Roger had a proverbial mustache, though. He was a suave little dude.
Suave little dude, as only an 11-year-old can be.
And he thought he was a ladies' man.
Anyway, we made this movie, and the movie ultimately got optioned, and that means they give you a little bit of money, and they promise to give you a lot more money if they sell it to somebody or they turn it into something else. But what that really meant was that the investment that we had to make the soccer movie, we no longer had that to fall back on. So we had to figure out a way to make something, and that's when I came up with the notion of, well, let's see if we can make a movie called Friday the 13th. And what I did was, on the 4th of July, I took out a full-page ad in a trade magazine called Variety. And it said, Friday the 13th, the most terrifying film ever made.
To put it out there.
And ran the ad. And we didn't have a script, by the way. And the idea was my idea was that if somebody was going to come and tell me I couldn't make the movie because the title belonged to somebody else, I'd hear from the lawyers. But I heard from nobody except distributors who said they would love to see the movie. And I said, okay, well, we'll put you on the list, and so on. And so that became immediately the basis for going forward with Friday the 13th, and I was fortunate enough to find some people that were willing to put up enough money to shoot Friday the 13th, and that's how it came about.
Gotcha. All right. Ari, I know this is a silly question, but how cold was that water?
Oh, I love that question. No, these guys would never have put me through any discomfort whatsoever. What are you talking about? In fact, the whole thing about the cold water comes from a different movie. That's part 4. Aronson, what was her name? Judy Aronson? They actually did have a situation where Ted White had to say, hey, she's getting too cold, etc., etc. And somehow they seemed to think, and I know it would be more dramatic if I was to say that, but no, in truth, I was a kid, I would have jumped into any Tom Savini and Tassos Thafrakis and Sean Cunningham and all the great people on the set. It was so much camaraderie and fun, and it was summertime after all. It was August when we shot the.
It was a little later than that.
Well, October.
And the water was very cold.
Well, somehow this kid was fine.
Yeah. And you were all bunked up together in the cabins, right? Like you all just kind of stayed on property?
You've seen the great picture of us standing right there on the dock together.
Yeah.
Does that look like a cold child? No. But I want to hasten to add that the brief moments on screen, if you were to divide them by the number of people that little Jason has frightened over these 45 years, that's got to be a Guinness Book of World Records.
Absolutely.
So there you go. Let's hear it for little Jason.
Little Jason.
Thank you, sir.
Now, to piggyback off that, I'd imagine that prosthetic sob up with water when you were underwater? Or?
Well, that's a good point. No, it had to be done quickly.
Yeah.
Sabine said to me, hey, we got to do this in like 1 or 2 takes because it wasn't necessarily waterproof. But I will say this, that and I had long hair back then, so they just had a bald cap, and they put all my hair up in there, and then there was some buoyancy. So when in the final scene, when I had to come up, it was great. It all worked together.
Oh, that's wonderful. Have you gotten sanction from NECA yet to get an action figure, young Jason official action figure?
Well, they did one back. They just now released a new Mama Voorhees one, and if you know the earlier version, they had one with that. So there you go.
Right.
It has happened.
Yeah. We need an update. I would love to see that.
We'll put it out there in the universe.
That's right.
Just like you put out what you said about Friday the 13th being the most terrifying movie of all time, and it manifests. So there you go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So moving forward with congratulations, by the way, finally moving forward with Friday the 13th and having A24 and Peacock involved in the new series. It's exciting, right? Absolutely. Yes. New Friday the 13th. Is there anything you can share about that process?
A little bit. I've been trying to make a Friday the 13th TV series for a while, and it's on again, off again, and you had to find ways to make it dramatic and plausible. You couldn't have Jason chasing campers around the woods every week. And you tune in again on Thursday night to see him kill a new camper. That wasn't gonna fly. So it took a long time to come up with a way to do it. We had one that was so close to getting a green light at CBS, and we had to abandon it right at the very end. And then subsequently, a very talented writer named Brian Fuller said he had an idea of a way to make this thing work, and he has a wonderful resume, and he wanted to be what's called the showrunner. And on TV, the showrunner is sort of like the boss of bosses. It's the person who has to supervise all the writers and usually winds up rewriting, what you're going to shoot on Monday because the script that came in on Friday is just not good enough. So anyway, Brian got this hankering to do Friday the 13th, which ultimately he got A24, which is a production company in Los Angeles, and Peacock together to say, yeah, we'll do it. And they started to develop it. And they were about 4 scripts in. They had hired the whole writer's room and were getting ready to shoot, and for whatever reasons, the people at A24, they were just concerned that the movie was getting too dark, and they didn't like some of Brian's stuff. And then, for whatever reasons, they just let Brian go, which we'll see how that works out. But Brian does have a dark bent to a lot of his writings, and They have subsequently restaffed the writers' room and have a new showrunner who's, I'm told, very good. I've never worked with him. And they're going to be shooting, well, I was going to say they're going to be shooting right away, but I don't know when they're going to really start. But they're supposed to shoot in Australia, and then it will be released on Peacock. The most optimistic time it would be released would be Halloween of this year, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I just saw they cast Laura Petty as Mrs. Voorhees. So at least we're getting cast in the movie. You know?
Yes.
It's Velma.
Velma, yeah, Scooby-Doo. Yes.
Well, I think if she played Velma in Scooby-Doo, she deserves a chance.
Absolutely, yeah. She's the ultimate runner away of slashers, you know.
Something there, somehow.
There's something there. Can we talk about the new video game? I know you worked with Wes and Gun Media on the last Friday the 13th video game, and I heard that there's a new one being developed right now.
Yes, there is, and it's in the world of Grand Theft Auto, video games have set the bar so high that you can't come out with something that looks like a bunch of Legos going around, screaming and with make-believe machetes. So the amount of time that it takes, I think today, in most cases, it takes at least 3 years from the time somebody starts working on a video game to the time it's ultimately released. And in that period of time, market changes, new things come out, and then you may have to change what you thought was a great idea then, but it doesn't work now. So in the not too distant future, there will be another Friday the 13th video game. We had hoped to have the second version of the video game out and in your hands already, but at the same time that the TV series came apart, the rights to making the next game fell apart. So it took a long time to settle all of that, and it's settled now, but there was a bunch of time that was lost in it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, cannot wait to play it. Very excited. Ari, you've signed a lot of things at your tables.
Indeed.
What would you say is the craziest thing that you've ever signed?
Oh my gosh, I've signed all kinds of every part of the anatomy you can imagine. And then, but also human bones, and I signed a shotgun once. Yeah.
Make sure it was
lots of things, all kinds of stuff.
That's wild.
Because why? Because collectors, that's a whole new world of entertainment. People are enjoying completing their collections and making sure they have every single one. So if somebody decided that they wanted to have a series of shotguns with each Jason Voorhees on them, so be it. Jason doesn't judge kink.
Not at all. No. If there was somebody taking over a Friday the 13th film in the future, a director, who would each of you like to see helm a Friday the 13th film? Who do you think would do a really good job?
I don't think you can go wrong with Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, that would be a great one. Absolutely.
How about Jordan Peele?
Jordan Peele, yeah. Bring a little,
just a thought.
Spookier side to Jason.
No, I think it's just the material, and it would have to be somebody that responds to the material. Yeah. My belief is that in most cases the material should be handled by a youngish director.
Yeah.
And because it's a young person's game, especially the horror world.
Absolutely.
You who are in the audience that are under 35 have grown up in a completely different world than we did. The things that scare you and the things that amuse you are different.
Yeah.
It's not a question of right or wrong, but they are very different. And I don't think you can make a horror film without embracing, young participants.
Yeah.
Well, certainly there being the new technology. Like Jason can't speak, but maybe he could text people if you gave him. And he'd be like, I'm right behind you.
Is Jason an emoji guy?
What kind of emojis would he? Because he would have to, or he'd be, you know, I don't know.
Absolutely. Sean, what would you say is was your favorite Friday the 13th film to work on of all the projects? Do you have one that's kind of like a Jason look that really spoke with you? Friday the 13th film to work on. I know Ari's answer.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
It doesn't matter, Sean. Fine.
No,
You tell me. I'll look at this guy.
I like them all so much.
Yeah.
Good answer, sir. No.
Awesome. You're continuing the producing gig. Is there anything that you've produced lately that you'd like to talk about?
Well, we are going to be shooting what appears to be an exciting horror thriller called Night Driver. Going to shoot that we're scheduled to shoot that in August, September in New Mexico, and it's a small, low budget film, but I think it could be very exciting. That's the next step.
Great. Awesome. All right, we'll turn it over to the crowd. If anybody has any questions, you can line up right there at the microphone.
All right, just piggybacking on that question you just asked, do you have ignoring obviously the first, but do you have a favorite sequel for all the movies?
Well, I think that Jason in Space or Jason X had things in it that just amused me a lot. A lot of the special effects were fun to see. There were some great gags in there, and one of the gags that we weren't sure if it was going to work or not, but we had this Jason running around on the holographic forest, and he was, it was sort of Jason's greatest hits. It was, if this were a game, this would be a greatest hits moment. And that was, he wound up picking up girls in the sleeping bag and banging them against the tree, and oh God. But that was the audience's, one of the audience's favorite scenes. Anyway, and I just thought that was a lot of fun to do. And we'd never tried to do anything that ambitious before.
Ari, did you have one, like a sequel that you liked?
I love Part 7 a lot, and the reason is I just feel it's a departure in the sense that you have Psychic Tina.
Yeah.
And let's remember Laura Park Lincoln in this moment, who we just lost. And I love her character because, and just from this straight up, it's cool because she plays a foil to Jason's sheer brutality. She's almost coming from that feminine witchcraft sort of place, and she uses her psychic powers to throw like kitchen implements at him.
Yeah.
And she makes the whole roof go on fire, and he just looks at her like, "You bitch."
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that whole thing's kind of, it's all practical, like that dock falling apart and everything. It's very intense.
Well, sure. And John Beekler, another person who got his wings, and the director, and was a special effects guy. So there you go.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's great. Next question.
Sure.
So this was Sean. When you were crafting the original Friday the 13th, how did you go about building the suspense in the movie and designing the atmosphere of Crystal Lake?
Okay, well, at some level, I think I benefited from not knowing what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, you get a chance to do things that you wouldn't do if you knew better. But what we needed to do is find a remote location, and Victor Miller often referenced 10 Little Indians. That one by one the campers might get picked off, and you're wondering who did it or how he did it. But I think the overarching feeling was that when you're a kid, sometimes you cry and your mom comes in, you say, I'm afraid there's a monster under the bed or a monster in the closet. And she says, oh, honey, look. And she opens the closet door and there's no monster there, and under the bed there's no monster. Just go to sleep, it'll be fine. And the notion was we would create a world in which there was enough monster under the bed or in the closet or whatever. And I think that part of the suspense at the time was who's going to make it through, and who's been doing all of this killing. And then we just turned on the rain sprinklers and started shooting.
All right, next question.
So with Jason having so many different varieties of kills, I was just curious, between the axe, machete, harpoon, was there a specific weapon that you got to utilize where you got to be creative with it, and was there a specific one where you're like, oh, this is fun, I can come up with some pretty cool kills with it?
No.
Anything and everything was fair game?
It was fair game, but he became identified with the machete.
With the machete,
That was an audience identification. But there's the frozen head in I believe he's in Jason X, which was just fantastic, surprising.
Liquid nitrogen kill.
Yeah, exactly.
Smashed into pieces.
Oh yeah.
You know what's interesting is Harry Crosby as Bill does hold up a machete in part 1 when they kill that poor snake, as you recall, sir. And there's the feathers are flying everywhere. How I love that. But my point being, do you remember that, right? The machete, man.
Well,
yes,
yeah.
It's your movie. What am I talking about?
But it had nothing to do with Jason.
But isn't that
It just had to do with killing the snake.
But it was so foreshadowing. Bill is standing there in that way with a machete. I don't know. What's that? It was obviously not done on purpose. But
No.
there you go. Who really? There's a
I think the only foreshadowing was Ralph in the store saying, "You're doomed. You're all doomed."
How'd you go about casting Ralph, by the way? How'd you find him?
Walt Dorney.
Yeah.
Oh,
Great
God.
actor.
He was actually an accomplished actor in New York, and I knew him from stage work, and he was available. He said, "Sure."
Yeah.
And
Just like
he's
that.
such a strange-looking, strange-sounding character
Right, Mike,
that we thought it would be great.
Awesome. All right. Next question.
Were you supportive of the Jason versus Freddy film? And did you think that Jason's character was enhanced in that film?
Well, I worked on Freddy versus Jason for, close to 10 years. If you involve getting the rights together and then getting the people that were connected all to agree on whatever we were going to do. But I love the notion of Freddy versus Jason, the way you would think of it as a cage match in a wrestling championship. And who the hell is going to win? Because this was like the basis of bar bets all around the world. And of course, Freddy was going to just get his ass kicked.
Absolutely.
But that was the fun part, is putting together that whole package, that whole merchandising package of taking the two franchises and seeing if you could make them work together. And a lot of the things that seemed to work well in the movie were mistakes when we shot it, but they turned out, to work just fine.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of mixing the franchises.
Did Wes Craven have any contributions to Friday the 13th?
Yeah. I mean, Wes and I were close friends, and we were, we always swapped scripts and stories, and yes, he was there as a sounding board whenever I needed one.
That's great. Yeah, you guys were the horror guys back
The
then.
horror guys, yeah.
What was it? Last House on the Left? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any part in that with Wes? Like,
Last house?
yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, Wes and I were very young in the business, and Wes worked down the hall, and then he came work with me in the cutting room, trying to figure out how to cut film, how to make it interesting, and we wound up with this idea of, I guess, remaking Virgin Spring with a couple of kids, and that was how that's how that whole snowball started to roll. It was a crazy time.
Yeah, that's great.
Those are good questions.
So this is a question. Tom Savini, makeup legend, Tom Savini.
Yeah.
What was it like being locked in a camp with him? Like, he must have just come back after combat, and he showed you guys all these pictures of like real.
Oh, no.
No,
No, quite the contrary. He was not prone to discuss his. He was of course, a press photographer, and et cetera, et cetera. No. What a great. Him and his assistant Tasso. It was like the Cheech and Chong of horror. So we had a lot of fun working together.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, you get that.
I mean, in their comedic timing, no other reason.
Right. Not at all. Gotcha. All right, we got 10 minutes. Oh, we got another question here? Absolutely, go for it.
Hi, hello. I've been to Blair's Town, New Jersey before Friday the 13th event. Yeah.
Cool.
What made you choose that camp?
The Camp Novi Bosco.
Yes.
and
Yes, I toured it.
the most important thing they did was they said yes. And suddenly it went right to the top of the list.
Nice. Hey, next question.
Hello there.
Hello.
Appreciate it. So I just have a quick question for you, Sean. I've heard you tell the story many a times. You came up with the idea for Friday the 13th. You just regaled us all with it. How can I or anyone in the audience come up with one sentence to then turn into a multi-million-dollar franchise idea like Friday the 13th?
It's not that hard.
Oh, okay, thank you.
There you go.
Yes, it's interesting. I guess memes are like that in a way nowadays. But
Sure.
I mean, Friday the 13th is fascinating because why is Friday the 13th considered an unlucky day? And that goes back to the Templar Knights. Who knows about that out there? Because that's when the Pope was Friday the 13th of October, 1307. And a Pope declared that the French people were allowed to kill all the Templars on sight. And that is the first time that Friday the 13th in history was considered. Anyway, I don't mean to divert us.
No, that's really good information. Because I think everybody kind of wonders why is it occurred to keep having it show up.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. And a light Google search will verify what I'm saying.
Yeah, wonderful. Awesome. All right. So let's go back to Freddy vs. Jason real quick. I know that you're trying to get Freddy vs. Jason versus Ash off the ground. And from what I heard was that it never came to be because they want Ash had to win. And you didn't want Ash to win. Is that true, or is it?
That was one of many reasons, but it was just I don't think Bruce ever really wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And they made this Evil Dead franchise when they were kids as a labor of love, and I don't think they wanted to get into the whole Paramount, Warner Brothers,
Sure, yeah.
New Line, corporate world, with that character.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Ari, now going back to the camp, you revisited the camp not too long ago and retook
Yes.
scenes in the water.
Oh yeah.
How was that? What was that like?
It was lovely.
Revisit.
It's wonderful. You can always go to Camp Crystal Lake, which is in New Jersey, and they have tours, Crystal Lake tours. It's a blast. Also, by the way, you can go to the Blairstown Diner, which is in Blairstown, New Jersey. There's no, you just walk right in and you can have some lunch, and that's exactly the same diner where, you know, Ralph said, "Going to Camp Blood, ain't you?" You know, it's the same exact place. So go on in there and check that out. And my band, First Jason, who just got signed to a label, finally.
Hey, congratulations!
So thank you, everybody. So keep your ears open to Liquid Metal. But we performed at the Blairstown Diner. That was last September, Friday the 13th. And it was, I don't know if anybody here was there, but yeah, they have good grilled cheese sandwiches.
Nice. It's kind of there. They had the gas station for Texas Chainsaw, and you have that from Friday the 13th.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yes. But in Bastrop, Texas, you mean?
Yes.
I know about that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Any
I just wanted to say Bastrop.
Yeah.
It's a word you don't always get to say.
Very nice. So is there anything else continuing with the Friday the 13th series besides the video game and the Peacock series? I think Jason showed up in a video game where he's fighting Looney Tune characters and a bunch of other stuff. That was pretty wild.
Oh yeah, this was cool.
It was neat. It was like a Smash Brothers for Warner Brother properties.
It was good. The way he did it was cool though.
Yeah.
It was fun.
He was the heavy. He was the beef. Yeah. So is there
in the right perspective, it was hilarious.
Yeah. Cool. Nice. Is there any more questions from the audience? Oh, we got one.
Would Ari ever consider non-horror role, or have you played non?
That's so nice of you to ask. I do independent horror films, and I've been in some really great ones. There's one called The Barn, in which I play Dr. Rock, and we're about to shoot The Barn 3, where Dr. Rock is in that one too. But gosh, have I done that? I was in an independent film that just happened to be called Crystal Lake, but it wasn't about. Okay, and I played like a janitor guy, and so it was about these girl skateboarders who take over the park from these boy skateboarders, and so I walk in there and I say this punk phrase. I say, "Girls to the front." That was my line. I wish I could remember the director, but there you go. So I guess the answer is yes, because he wasn't very scared.
Yeah.
He was just.
I have a sound effect for you.
Oh, do you?
Jason's new record.
Whoa. And that's the sound effect created by Harry Manfredini. Everybody, yes, the ch-ch-ch-ah-ah-ah. That's a very good sound effect. And you know what? We even have that on our new record, Into the Fray. So thank you for referencing that.
Very cool.
Yes. Yeah, well done. Appreciate that.
Another question there.
Time.
Oh, she's.
Thank you for being here. So, understanding that you started with the tagline and you kind of built a script off that, was there a specific image or general plot line that kind of stuck out in your head that you wanted to build around?
In Friday the 13th?
Yeah, was there a specific image?
Not a specific image. I had done some work with fairy tales before Friday the 13th, and trying to figure out fairy tales. These are really difficult stories. You know, Hansel and Gretel, they're having trouble at home, and the parents decide to take them out to the woods and leave them to die. And it goes downhill from there. And so I wound up putting a lot of thought into what is it about these stories that seems to be universally attractive to a younger audience, and has for hundreds of years. And there are a lot of people that have written about it. Bruno Bettelheim is the one that I used most, and he explained that those stories contain things that we are all afraid of but don't have voices to give, and that once you see something that you're afraid of, it's not as bad when you see it and or hear of it the second time and or hear of it the third time. So in its own way, fairy tales teach us how to cope. And the one that I grabbed a hold of in Friday the 13th was, I think the fear of untimely death is something that just is part of the world of being a teenager. And most scripts, are very carefully crafted, so when things happen, there's a reason for it. And so you think that you can avoid it, but in fact, so much happens to us in our lives that is unforeseen and unwarranted. And I think my favorite scene in that regard is in Jaws, where all of the town and all the tourists are swimming and having a wonderful time, and we get the Jaws, the shark's point of view of the legs up there, and there are hundreds of legs, and the only thing that's going to keep you alive is whether or not the shark is hungry. But he's not going to be looking for the pot smoker or the loose girl or the bad guy. He's just looking for something to eat, and your lunch. And that's one of the things that I took comfort in when we were trying to structure Friday the 13th is why are these terrible things happening to these kids? And the answer to that ultimately, I think, is because shit happens.
It's natural selection.
The undiscovered country from which no traveler returns puzzles the way.
Where's that from?
Hamlet.
So, is there any parting last words you guys like to give?
Go and then you finish, right? I'll go and then you do the finale.
Okay, I'm finished.
No. I'm just gonna say, everybody, keep your eye out. First Jason is doing lots of great new stuff, and I'm really happy to be here at the first Chicago Nightmare weekend. Let's give them a. And Sean, I really enjoyed listening to what you just had to say. Thank you for sharing that with us. And what else do you have to say?
Well, I would also like to make a call out to the people who are running this weekend nightmare. They are, from our point of view, they couldn't be more helpful or more supportive. And I hope that you will continue in the future to be more supportive of them as they come back here on their different nightmare rounds. But this is the first year they've been here, and I'm sure that they are grateful that you're here too. So
That's right.
thank you all for coming, and thank you for the nightmare people for
Thank you
making.
so much.
Jason never dies.